Hi, my name is David Hills and I'm Senior Director at Ark Workplace Risk. We're working to develop a series of short informative videos on the key elements of the new Building Safety regime, the Building Safety Act and the associated legislation. Now in this video I'll be focusing on the new requirements regarding a safety case and the subsequent safety case report. Now this is the first of two videos on safety cases and safety case reports and considers what you need to do and prepare in order to meet the new requirements. Now the Building Safety Act 2022 introduces new roles along with a new set of responsibilities for people who own occupied high-rise residential buildings. Those buildings, for example, that are over 18 metres in height or 7 stories or more. Now within the Act, those responsible for these types of buildings will be required to hold and manage key information and systems called a safety case, and then prepare a document called a safety case report for their specific building. Now there are some very important differences between what a safety case is and what a safety case report is. So the safety case is all of the information, the arrangements and the systems that you will use to manage the risk of fire spread within your building and structural safety within your building. For example, what information do you hold regarding fire safety equipment installed in the building, such as automatic smoke ventilation systems, the fire doors, any fire alarm systems, including information such as commissioning certificates, the results of any inspections and checks and maintenance. But also, importantly, in addition to these, you should also include information relating to the structural safety arrangements within your building. For example, have you undertaken any structural condition surveys or assessments? Now, the safety case report, on the other hand, is a narrative document that summarises all of your safety case. It identifies the building's major fire and structural hazards. It shows how you are managing those risks as far as you can so that your residents are safe. Now the report should give the reader confidence that you as the owner have identified all of your building's major fire and structural risks and are subsequently managing and controlling them both now and in the future. So, who is going to read this report? The report is firstly aimed at the owner of the high-risk building themselves. It should be written so as to give that owner a surety that they have taken all of the steps necessary to secure the safety of residents and have everything in place. In addition, though, others will be looking and reading this report, including the new Building Safety Regulator, who will have to be provided a copy of the report when they request this, but also others such as the local fire and rescue service. And finally, in order to give residents a voice, a copy will also have to be made available to the residents when they request it. So, safety case reports must be proportional and applicable to the specific building to which they relate. They must not be a generic or a copy and paste of any other building. Every building is different. The safety case report design, though, should be based upon the complexity of the building and your organisation. For example, the more systems, the more arrangements you have in place within your building, the more information, the more description, and the more justification you will have to provide. Your report should show that you have taken all reasonable steps to prevent any building safety incidents occurring, and if they do occur, reduce the severity of those incidents. Now, Grenfell has taught us that we have to consider buildings as a whole system, a system that contains a series of interconnected and dependent protective layers of measures. So gone are the days that considering individual measures in isolation. In almost every building, these systems and measures interact with each other and are mutually supportive. For example, you cannot just consider fire doors in isolation without considering the requirements for compartmentation across the whole building as well as the evacuation strategy. Indeed, the aim of the safety case report is to pull all of these interconnected parts, all of the information, all of the systems together to show and justify that the building has been designed, constructed and managed to deliver a safe place for residents to live in now and for the future. Okay, so when do you need to have the safety case report ready? Okay, the Act became law in 2022 and the requirement for a safety case report will be phased in after April 2023. Now from April 2023, owners will be required to register their building with the regulator. And from then on, there is a limited amount of time for owners to develop all of the required documentation, the systems and all the information they have ready for October 2023. The regulator themselves are suggesting that they will start to want to review these on a proactive basis from 2024. But it is very clear that these will need to be developed well in advance of that, or you may be in breach of the Act. Right, so what information do you need to have in place in order to have your safety case report developed and completed? Firstly, you need to gather, capture and manage all of the available information on the building itself. At least all the information that you have access to. Now, this can include quite a lot. It could include, for example, basic building information such as when was the building designed, when was it constructed, and what type or size is it, how was it designed, and what's its use. Is the building, for example, a mixed use? You need to understand how the building was constructed. What type of frame is the building? What type of structure does the building have? And how does this interact with each other? You need to understand the resident profile. What type of residents occupy the property? And do they require special information or special attention and facilities to ensure their safety? You need to understand the refurbishment history. How has the building been changed or refurbished over the years? And what effect has this had on existing and systems and arrangements? What fire prevention and what protective measures have you in place throughout the building, and how are these interrelated? In addition, you should consider what structural safety measures are included. For example, how was the building designed as a structural entity? Was it designed on a frame basis? What type of foundations do you have? And of course, what type of external wall do you have? What systems and utilities serve the building, and how are these deployed across the building? And what risks do they pose? And importantly, what maintenance and inspection regimes do you have in place? Okay, that's the first element. There's quite a lot of work there that needs to be undertaken. So in addition to the basic building information you have, the next set of important information you need to have in place are full details of the whole building's fire and safety risks. It is vital, therefore, that your fire and general risk assessments consider all of the different areas of your building. It is just as important to consider the different fire hazards in an individual flat or any commercial tenancy as those within the common areas, such as a corridor, a shared amenity area, or a plant room. This is not, therefore, just a fire risk assessment or a fire risk assessment of the common areas of your building, but an holistic assessment of both fire and structural safety risks for each and every area within your building, including the details and risks associated with the external walls. Assessing all of your building safety risks will ensure that you understand fully what you have to do in order to keep people safe whilst in the building and it's occupied. Finally, your assessment must consider the ongoing risks during occupation and how are these risks being managed, or how have they changed over time due to refurbishment. This means, therefore, that you can't just assess the risks, you have to manage those risks now and for the future. Thirdly, it is important to have a full and thorough understanding of what systems and measures such as the preventative and protective measures you have in place within your building. This could be the physical equipment and the safety features you have, such as fire alarm systems, firefighting equipment, compartmentation, as well as the protection of the structural frame. We have to include structural safety as well. In addition, it includes the management arrangements that you have in place, covering things such as inspections and maintenance, testing and thorough examination. Once you have all the information about the building and the details of the risks, the next vitally important area is having in place and being able to articulate within the safety case report details of your safety management system. Now, a safety management system is a formal system and framework that is required under the Act that aims to help you manage all of your building safety risks and arrangements in your building. Your safety management system should be proportional to the hazards within your building and be based on an in-occupation assessment for the whole building. There are various things that could influence how complex your safety management system is or needs to be. For example, the number of buildings you own or manage, the complexity and size of your organisation, as well as the complexity and size of your building. For example, is the building a mixed-use building? It could include the complexity of the systems and the measures in place to control building safety risks, such as any fire alarm system or smoke control system. You need to consider what type of safety measures you have in place and how they integrate and interact with each other. You need to consider the extent to which contractors and third parties manage or maintain the measures in place. For example, are you using an agent? You need to think about what is the resident profile. Do you have any residents, for example, that need assistance in evacuating from the property? You also may have multiple residency profiles. And finally, it needs to consider what technology platform you are using to support how you are going to meet the requirements of the Building Safety Act. Now, the regulator has suggested and provided guidance on how safety management systems can be developed, based upon its plan, do, check, act approach. For example, plan. You need to determine who is responsible for the various activities needed, determine your policies and procedures, and then plan for how you will implement these within your building. The do element is all about profiling your risks and implementing your maintenance and management policies, the procedures, the systems that you have in place, as well as manage any change within your building or within the system itself. The check element is based around measuring your performance proactively and on a reactive basis. This will require you to decide what is acceptable in terms of specific performance for your building. Any dip in performance, for example, would be a cause for concern, and you should have in place mechanisms to investigate these. And finally, the act element is all about reviewing your performance and your safety management system to ensure that the measures in place remain appropriate, proportional, and effective. Finally then, you need to bring all of this together and all of the information that you've gathered, the details of the risks and the protective and control measures you have in place, and details of your safety management system, and then write a narrative document known as your safety case report. This narrative document is incredibly important and should demonstrate that you have identified and assessed all of the safety risks in your building, that you have taken or are taking all reasonable steps to prevent any safety incidents, and show that the measures taken to reduce the severity of incidents, if they occur, are again proportional and effective. If your building has more than one accountable person, known as an AP, it is responsible of the principal accountable person to produce the report in collaboration with the other APs. Now, the government and regulator have made it clear that the exact contents and level of detail included in your safety case is a matter for the principal accountable person. They need to determine, taking into account the hazards, the risk assessments, the safety arrangements, and other elements such as how complex the building is to determine what they include. But as the regulator has stated, it is important to ensure that the document is full. It is based upon evidence and it is well structured. And they have stated that they do not think it is appropriate to produce a safety case report template to be filled in. Our tip would be to ensure that the process of capturing and storing your safety case information prior to commencing writing the safety case report is brought together along with details of all your inspections, maintenance and change management reviews into one area within your technology platform supporting your building safety management approach. Some management systems, such as CUDA, are configured to support owners, accountable persons and principal accountable persons and provide visibility and transparency over the safety case material and the report itself, and you can see all the required actions and tasks so that you can monitor them, control them, and where necessary, report accordingly. Thank you for listening. If you would like more information or see how Ark's Building Safety Assurance Service makes it easier to manage risk compliance and safety at your building, then you can contact us using the details provided.